Good morning. Welcome back to Mishmas. I am trying to find today's coffee on the Nespresso site and I'm not actually having good luck. So we have the Ristretto Classico and there is no Ristretto Classico. There's just plain old Ristretto. So maybe, actually no, it's called Ristretto Intenso. I don't know. We're gonna go with that one, because this was one of those smaller pods, so I think it's gonna be fairly intense. It is described as spicy and woody. The intensity is 12. Oh wow, so that scale is not out of 10. I think it's out of 12. It is spicy, it is woody and earthy. It is 5 out of 5 bitterness and body. The acidity is 2 out of 5. Roastiness is 4 out of 5. Let's see, a ristretto is a nod to Italian coffee tradition, meaning restricted in Italian. A ristretto refers to an espresso pour which is markedly intense due to a reduced amount of water passing through the finely ground coffee. The resulting beverage has a concentrated flavor and rich aroma. It sure does. I'm smelling it. Our ristretto intenso captures the essence of this Italian tradition, packed with the same amount of coffee as an espresso capsule, but brewing at 0.85 fluid ounces. Instead of, I think espressos are 1 ounce, this dark roasted blend delivers an intense and flavorful experience. Let's see, notes of peppery spices and wood, finalized by a tobacco touch. Okay, I'm going in. Wow, it is really very aromatic. I also feel like my mug is way too big for this. It's like a little bit of liquid at the bottom. That is strong. That is by far the strongest one that we have had so far, for sure. It is very bitter, but I like it. I like it. If you're like a coffee lover, I think you'll really like this. Definitely spicy. I don't know if I can distinguish between the tobacco and like the other like little spices I'm tasting. Wow, that's nice though. I don't think I ever realized that a ristretto was a smaller, more concentrated version of espresso, like with just a little bit less water. Wow. Okay, and I'm done. And I'm done. That was delicious. I feel like that was almost like a meal unto itself. That was really, wow. I'm like, hi, how are you? Welcome back to Mishmas. All right, well, let me work off some of this caffeine. Let's open up these advent calendars for Jo Malone and Diptyque. Hey, day 13. Ooh, it's a big one up here. Maybe because we're halfway. Oh, wood sage and sea salt body cream. I do love the body creams from Jo Malone, and I do love the wood sage and sea salt. I think we got the cologne earlier, and I was talking about how I really love this fragrance, but not necessarily in cologne. I think I like it in the cream and the hand wash and everything. Lovely. And this is such a generous size. This is like a deluxe sample. Okay, day 13. Oh my gosh, we are officially halfway through. 13 over here. We've got, oh, babe, my favorite. I love this one. I asked one of the sales associates at the Diptyque boutique at the Wynn what their most popular fragrance was, and she said this one by far. I love it. I thought today we would talk about fragrances, and I wanted to talk about my favorite winter fragrances. And when I started looking at this list, because it is quite different from fragrances that I would wear in the warmer months, in the spring, summer seasons. So when I was taking a closer look at this list, I realized that a lot of these fragrances are very sensual, they're very sexy, they're very, very seductive, they're very evocative. So yes, we're going to be talking about my favorite wintertime, cooler month fragrances, but these fragrances are also very, very unforgettable, they're very memorable, and if you're hoping to make an impression, I think these are the fragrances you should go for. So let's go ahead and get started. I pulled out a whole bunch from my very large fragrance collection. As you guys know, I've shared that with you in the past. And so I don't really have a specific number in here of how many fragrances I have, but I will go through all the ones that I think if you want will get you a second date, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, all of these fragrances I think are very, very unique. I've heard, other people mention these fragrances, but not too often. The first one is going to be one that I have recommended. It's been in my, all-time favorite fragrances, favorite winter fragrances. But this fragrance, you guys, this is the Harmonist Hypnotizing Fire. And this is very, very, it's so seductive. I think it's so seductive. I'm actually going to look up all of the notes of these fragrances that I'm going to be talking about so I can speak to them a little bit more intelligently. So I love to use the Fragrantica site. They have like all the notes and everything broken out really, really clearly. So this is a warm, spicy fragrance. And here we go. Okay, so the top notes for this are pimento, cloves, pepper tree. Middle notes are patchouli, Bulgarian rose, praline. And the base notes are vanilla, opoponax, and benzoin. So you have a lot of the spiciness from the pimento and the cloves. There's a little bit of like a feminine quality when it comes to the Bulgarian rose, but then you get the more gourmand sense as the base notes. And the mixture of it all really smells like there is a bit of wood smoke in the air, but it is kind of wrapped with the vanilla and the benzoin and the opoponax. It's a gourmand, but it's not too overly sweet. And it's definitely what I've referred to in the past as like a third date fragrance, if you know what I'm saying. This is like when you want to pull out all of the stops, when you want to close the deal, this is your guy. This is the one, Hypnotizing Fire. So there's a deepness to this fragrance. There's definitely like a seriousness to this fragrance. I would say that probably for all of these because they are deeper. They are for the darker months, the colder months, the months where you want to snuggle up and cozy up with someone. This is going to get you there. I guarantee it. This is so beautiful. And I think what I love about this fragrance is it's so entirely unique. And I think that is an essential ingredient in being memorable and being unforgettable is having a very unique scent. Now, most scents smell very differently on different people. So even if you're wearing a very popular fragrance, you will most likely smell unique because you're wearing it in your own way. But this will guarantee it. And most of the ones I'm going to mention will guarantee that you will be absolutely unforgettable. Okay, I'm being like very dramatic, but I do love this fragrance. And I think it is just, it conjures up like a romantic cuddle time in front of the fireplace. It really is quite incredible. So that is the Harmonist Hypnotizing Fire. Let me move on. The other one I wanted to mention is fairly new to me. I think I got this maybe within the last year. This is L'Immensité, I think is how you pronounce it, from Louis Vuitton. And I love this one because it has like a Coca-Cola kind of note in there. And I remember when I found this at Louis Vuitton, I was at the fragrance, I don't want to say counter, it's more like a kiosk, and they have all of them kind of lined up and you can spray them on the little, pieces of cardboard or whatever, wave it around. And I was like, this is nice, oh, this is sweet, this is clean. And then I got to this one and I was like, what is that? And I love, love, love when there is like a note of Coca-Cola. You guys will probably remember me going on and on about Kilian's Boys, which has been discontinued. Apparently it's only carried in Russia. I don't know what that's about. I am still mourning Boys. I'm still mourning Boys. That is like the ultimate Coca-Cola fragrance. All right, before I go on and on, let me just share with you the notes, again, off of Fragrantica. Top notes, grapefruit, ginger, bergamot. Middle notes, water notes, sage, rosemary, and geranium. Base notes, ambroxan, amber, and labdanum. It's definitely like a Coca-Cola sort of adjacent kind of fragrance. The amber really comes through, which keeps it from smelling too much like a straight up soda. Oh, but it is really, really sexy is in the right word, enticing. This is a very enticing fragrance. It makes, I would say, someone who's near you, someone who's gotten a whiff of this, that they'd want to move in a little bit closer, that they'd want to maybe get a deeper whiff of whatever you have on. It lures someone closer to you. It's very unisex, and I find that when women wear unisex or fragrances that are made for men, with men in mind, that it can be very sultry. It can be very, very sexy, very evocative. I find that about this one. I do find this one to be very, very enticing. So I love this one. This one is a big favorite in my collection. Another one, I've talked about this. Now, this is more of like a first date kind of fragrance. It is like a smoky bar. You know, it's very, very mysterious. There is a lot of like a deep, deep rose, almost like a black rose note. And it's very dark. I always equate this fragrance to walking into one of those New York City bars where you walk down the steps. So it's like below ground and you walk in and your eyes have to adjust. It's really dark. There's a lot of cigarette smoke. Not anymore. Pretend. There's a lot of cigarette smoke going on. There's maybe like red velvet, black velvet on the walls. The bar is really old. The bartender is cranky. It's one of those places. That's what this reminds me of. I don't know why, but let me share with you the notes. So the top notes: rose, clove, raspberry, blackcurrant, cinnamon, red berries. Middle notes: Turkish rose, which is what I think kind of gives it the like heavier rose scent, patchouli, incense, sandalwood, and lang lang. And then the base notes are incense, sandalwood, musk, benzoin, amber, cedar, ambergris, and vanilla. So we've got a lot going on. And there's something about the rose, and it's mixed with one of these other notes that really gives it that sort of tonic kind of smell, which is I think why it evokes for me like a bar. Oh, but this is really, really nice. I feel like this is a perfect first date fragrance. It'll get you that second date. I think it's going to get you a text message after your date. This is so good. It is very, very seductive, this Portrait of a Lady. Love it. Absolutely love it. Another Frederic Malle fragrance I love is Promise. Now, this one is very masculine, actually, but there's a sweetness to it. And it is, oh, it's so unique, but it kind of smells like old tobacco. And well, according to Fragrantica, it is for men and women. Main accords, it's woody. So let me get down to the notes here. Apple, pink pepper, rosemary, saffron, and cloves are the top notes. Middle notes: Bulgarian rose and Turkish rose. Base notes: cypriol oil or nagar matha. I guess that's the other name for it. Patchouli, castoreum, labdanum, and abroxan. So this, again, it has that sweetness, which I think are all those base notes. A little bit of sweetness. It really actually smells very heavily of cloves. I think that's what reminds me of tobacco. And I think out of all the ones that I've talked about so far, this one is, while it's very, very deep, it does remind me maybe of like a hookah bar, probably the cloves. It does remind me of my time in Marrakesh when I visited Morocco. There's a fun playfulness with this fragrance, despite it being kind of deep and bold. But there's like a little bit of a friendliness in there. So I would say this is appropriate for a date, maybe a first date. You're not exactly sure which direction you want it to go in. Is he or she a friend? Is he or she a potential? We don't know yet. And I think this could be, little did you know this was going to turn into like a dating video. But I think that's how I kind of consider this fragrance. It's a little bit more playful. And even though it's like very, very appropriate for the winter months, it's the kind of tangy sweetness that this has. Anyway, amazing. And I do know they have, which I'll link down below, they have like a travel size of this if you don't want to commit. Also, the Frederic Malle fragrances, along with some other ones, which I'll point out, these are strong. These are strong. I've made the mistake of just, like spritzing it all over me. You'll smell it for days. This is like a 1 and maybe a 1 on the wrist, and that's it. And you walk out the door. Same with Portrait of a Lady. So if you do end up investing in these, go lightly, go lightly. Where should I move to next? Okay, this is probably, I would say, the most unique fragrance in my collection. I know I turned at least 1 or 2 of you onto this particular fragrance, and one of you loved it. And I was even hesitant in recommending this because it is so unique, it's so different, and I think it's gonna be one of those you either love it or you hate it. So this is the Armani Bois d'Ensen. And I fell in love with this fragrance when I went to Milan for the first time. and I went to the Armani Hotel, and they have this basically just like pumping through the vents. You walk in and it's like, oh, what is that? Oh, that's so, oh. And it kind of smells differently depending on where you are. If you're in the elevator, if you're in the hallway, if you're sitting in like a waiting room. It's such a mysterious fragrance, and you almost can't like place it. There's a nostalgia to it, but of a memory that maybe you've never had. It's just incredible. So when we asked about this, so when we were leaving the hotel, we were like, what is this fragrance and can we purchase this somewhere? The customer service rep at the hotel was telling us that Armani created this fragrance based off of memories that he had as a young boy or as a child going to church with his grandmother. And that's exactly, as soon as she said church as a child, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I ever went to church as a child. So again, it's nostalgic in a really strange way because it's of a memory that I never had, but it's what I would imagine. It's what I would imagine going to an old church in Europe, in Italy. It has sort of like a damp quality to it, and then there's incense. So it is exactly like if you close your eyes and I say incense in a damp basement. I know that sounds awful, but it is such an interesting fragrance. I have to spray some. The first spritz you get is like, again, if you close your eyes, you open up a basement door and you start to walk down those stairs, that's the smell that you get. That smell, that sort of like smell of old memories of like books in a cardboard box that have been sitting down there for 10 years. A little mustiness. It's like a little bit humid down there. That's what you get. And then it opens up into incense, a mixture of incense in there. And it's not to put them down, but not the like cheap kind of overbearing incense that you smell like on 6th Avenue in New York. If you guys know, you know. It's a lighter fragrance. It's a fragrance like at the back of the church and you're closer to the altar. That level of incense. It is mysterious. This fragrance is really, really mysterious. So maybe this is one that you would wear. You have no expectations of the evening. You throw some of this on and maybe you catch someone's attention as you're walking by, because this is definitely a head turner. It's like, what's that? Again, I feel nostalgic for no reason. What's going on? This is very mysterious. So that's the Armani Bois d'Encens. Incredible. Just really, really interesting. Very interesting. And definitely the most unique I have. Moving on. My goodness. Who knew I had so much to say about fragrances? This fragrance I just absolutely love. It definitely has gotten, I want to say, more popular over the past few years, and I'm seeing it a little bit more. Diptyque used to reserve this fragrance only for their boutiques and like their special retailers at special locations, but now I'm seeing it a little bit more broadly distributed, which I'm happy about because everyone needs to enjoy this fragrance. This is Orilla from Diptyque, and let me pull up its notes. Sorry, I completely forgot to pull up the notes for Bois d'Encens, but on Fragrantica, there's only 4 notes: labdanum, spices, cedar, and vetiver. So I don't know if like the ingredients and everything are like super top secret or they haven't been able to get like the inside scoop on those, but that's all they have listed here. And I mean, it sounds about right. There definitely is a very strong like cedar and vetiver. And they do say that this was created for men and women. Oh, and it mentions that it is a personal favorite of Giorgio Armani's. Sorry, back to Diptyque's Orilla. All right, so the notes for Orilla are top notes: raspberry, saffron, pink pepper; middle notes: leather, iris, cedar; base notes: vanilla and musk. The 2 notes that I smell the most, and you guys know this because I've talked about this plenty of times. I even have the body cream of this, which is divine. But the 2 notes I smell the most are raspberry and leather. I feel like I smell basically raspberry leather with this. It is slightly refreshing because of the raspberry. There's a brightness. There's a little bit of an acidity with the raspberry. And then the leather brings it down. The leather makes it a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more serious. a little bit deeper. Like if you really just smell the raspberry and the vanilla or whatever, this would definitely end up being like more of a spring, summer. This, I feel like, actually, let me take that all back. I feel like this is an all year round fragrance. You could definitely, because the raspberry does lighten up the leather, but because there's leather in there, I sort of associate it with colder month fragrances. Oh, I just love this. I love, love, love this fragrance so much. Oh, it settles so nicely. You know what this reminds me of? Actually, this is the first time I'm kind of putting two and two together. Have you guys ever drank lambic? It's a type of beer, and I don't know if there's only one brand that's made it. That can't be. But I believe it is Belgium. And the brand is, sorry, it's been decades since I've had this. The brand is Lindemans, or Lindmans, and they had a Framboise lambic. And it was a pretty big bottle for a beer, pretty big bottle, and it was corked. And so it had this raspberry flavor to the beer. That's what this reminds me of, because it's raspberry, but there's like a heaviness to it, or like a density to it. And that's what this reminds me of. Please sound off down below if you guys have had the Lindemans Framboise. I used to drink that a lot in college because it was so palatable compared to like regular beer, especially like an IPA or something. Ugh. Yeah, the lambic beers were so good. They had different flavors too. They had a cherry, I think, and maybe a peach, but the raspberry was the best. Anyway, raspberry and leather. This is great. This is great maybe for like a friend outing. This is much, much lighter. Obviously, it could go very, very well on a date, especially if your date likes to drink lambic. The other diptyque fragrance is the L'Ombre d'un Loup. And this is the fragrance that smells the most like their bay candle. So it has like a pretty deep rose, but it's not quite as deep and seductive as the Portrait of a Lady. So the notes for this are cassis, rose, black currant leaf, black currant, bergamot, ambergris, musk, and mandarin orange. So from that, you can probably tell that this is probably the lightest one that I'm going to be talking about. It is very fresh, very light. It's very pretty. The rose is pretty strong in here. And I really like this for something just a little bit less serious. Like maybe you have a date that is a brunch, or during the daytime, or during the week, or you're just meeting for coffee. Again, maybe it's like a first meeting situation. I think this is perfect for that. This is also a great, great, great everyday fragrance. It's just light, it's fun, it's a little flirty. I really enjoy this one. So if you like the diptyque bay candle, I think you'll really, really love this. All right, this next one is by far the most gourmand out of all of these. And this is the Bond No. 9 Tribeca. This just smells like a box of chocolates. It is so, so yummy. The notes are top notes, hazelnut cacao, middle notes, jasmine, sambic, and cedar, base notes, ambroxan, caramel, and moss. I mean, yummy in my tummy. Ooh, this is so good. So good. I feel like this is like a dessert and espresso martini all in one bottle. This is really wonderful. I guess if you want your date to reach the dessert point, this is perfectly appropriate. Sorry, I'm being silly again, but it is gently gourmand. I don't like gourmand fragrances that just straight up smell like, I don't know, vanilla, or just something really, really sweet. Like I don't really like the ones that are too obvious, like a frappuccino, like something that just smells like coffee and just something that smells like overly sweet. I don't really like that. I find those can be, especially as the longer you wear them, they can end up being kind of like nauseating. This one has a subtlety to it. And I think it's probably like all the other notes that kind of balance it out, like the cedar, the jasmine sambic, the moss. The moss definitely comes through because that gives it a little bit of a green element to all of the like brown gourmand kind of notes. It is really delicious, really, really delicious, utterly divine. I really, really enjoy this one. Like if you like gourmand, but again, you're like me, you don't want it like just too obvious and too sweet, and you don't want to walk around smelling like some sweet coffee beverage, try the Tribeca out. It is definitely much more subtle than that. So those are definitely my favorite fragrances for the winter time, ones that I think of come winter. And these are also definitely ones that I feel like I think of when I want to be memorable, when I want to be unforgettable, when I want to be appealing. I think these are very, very appealing fragrances. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. And I will see you in tomorrow's Mishmas video. Bye.